The Atlanta Story is a podcast highlighting Atlanta's most interesting creators, entrepreneurs, and builders. I'm JC Lucas with Atlanta Ventures and co-producer alongside Jon Birdsong. To kick off season 2, Jon sits down with Coach Mike Smith, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Mike, or Smitty as locals know him, is the Falcons' winningest coach in franchise history by number of wins. In 2018, he was the recipient of the NFL Coach of the Year award. In today's episode, we talk about how to win in the locker room, what Mike was most proud of during his time in Atlanta, and what he would do differently looking back, plus much more. We hope you enjoy the show and subscribe to the Atlanta Story.
Coach Smith, welcome to the Atlanta Story podcast.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Jon.
Well, welcome back to Atlanta. We're excited to learn more about a lot of the stories over the years of coaching, and particularly in Atlanta, and the phenomenal job you did, and dive in a little bit deeper. So thank you. Talk to us. When did you know you wanted to be a coach?
Jon, I really come from a coaching family. My father was an educator, football coach. I was on the sideline when I was 5 years old at Seabreeze Junior High School. And I
down in Daytona, right?
Down at Daytona Beach,
yeah.
Yes. And went to practice every day. I can remember it very vividly. Practice would be over. We'd jump in the back of the truck, me with all the guys that my dad was driving home in the back of his truck. If you did that today, they would, they would arrest you. We'd have 15 guys in the back of a pickup truck driving down A1A. And at the top of the street, one guy would jump off, go to the next road, Roberta Avenue, boom, somebody else would jump off. So I have been around football and been on a sideline from a very young age. And I think it was probably in high school that I really wanted to be a football coach. And that was because of my head coach at Father Lopez High School, Phil Rehart. My senior year, I broke my arm in the second game of the season. Didn't get to play. And Coach Rehart was really the one that introduced me to being a coach. He said, Mike, I've watched you grow up. I've watched you as a player. Said, I'd like to see if you would be interested in coaching the JV team while you're recuperating from your broken arm. And I jumped at the opportunity. And so I was a senior, and I was working with the freshmen at Father Lopez High School. And, Coach Rehart would take me to games when he would go scouting in Florida. There were games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. And if one of our opponents was playing on a Thursday night, we'd take off. And I remember driving his GTO to go scout games. So that was my first
playing in college and a little bit in the pros up in Canada. Did you always know in the back of your mind, like, this is all just a learning process to be a great coach?
Yeah, I think all athletes, they want to try to play at the highest level. And, I had an opportunity to go play in the Canadian Football League. But I found out real quick that I was a marginal professional football player. And in fact, it's a real funny story. Ray Yock was the head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I was up in camp and made it through to the final cut and then was put on their taxi squad. And at that time, I had an opportunity to go be a graduate assistant at San Diego State. One of the coaches that I had played for in college was the defensive coordinator. And I'd heard the stories about the Canadian Football League that when the NFL started cutting players, it was a revolving door. So I went to Coach Yock and asked for a meeting with him. And so I went into his office, and Coach Yock was, a legendary coach in Canada. But he had these glasses below his eyes, and he didn't even look up from the table I came in. He said, sit down. He didn't even look up. And I said, Coach, he said, I need some advice. He didn't even look up. So I'm going, oh, gosh, what am I going to do here? I said, I need to know what are my chances of being a professional football player, because I have an opportunity to go to San Diego State as a graduate assistant. He didn't even look up. He said, son, you need to go coach.
Yep.
and it, that was the moment I knew that I had to start that journey. And, I flew back to Daytona Beach. I got in a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, drove across the country, and started working at San Diego State. And not getting paid very much. Was a security guard at night. I was working till 8 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock I'd run to this hotel. Was owned by a booster.
Yeah.
And I was quote the security guard. I never saw anybody, but I was a security guard.
Well, I want to get into a lot of the games and specifics and teams that you coached over the years, but let's go a little bit deeper into some of the players in terms of when I read your book, you and John Gordon's, you win in the locker room first. Commitment is a huge C in the book, right? And over your years, who was one of the most committed players, and what sort of behaviors proved that commitment?
Well, I was very fortunate to coach some great players, not only guys that played at my position, but on my side of the ball or on the team when I was the head coach. Probably the guy that was the most committed guy that I ever coached was Ray Lewis. Ray was passionate about football. I used to enjoy Wednesday mornings during the season because he was going to come in, and I'd known what he had been doing on Monday and Tuesday. He'd been watching film, and he would have his notes, and we would compare notes before we would meet as a group with the linebackers. And he was so committed that he wanted everybody to be their best, and it just seeped out of his pores. He would have meetings with the guys on their own at night where they would have film study. And it started out as, 5 or 6 guys, but then it ends up being 15 or 20. And when you've got 15 or 20 guys that are basically singing out of the same hymnal, seeing it out of the same eyes, you've got a chance to be very, very good. And that's why he's got a gold jacket. He's won 2 Super Bowls. It's because of his passion for the game. There's another guy that I coached that was very passionate, was completely different. Ray was an in-your-face kind of guy. He was very vocal. The opposite of him was Tony Gonzalez. Coach Tony here in Atlanta. And, Tony was not a very vocal leader. He led by example. And I'll just give you this a quick story about what happened when he came to Atlanta. So he comes to Atlanta, and we're starting our first mini camp. And I look out from my second floor window, and it's 45 minutes before practice. And I look out there, and I'm going, God, who is that? I look out there, and it's Tony. And he has got a manager, one of our guys that worked in the equipment room, throwing him balls. And he caught, a couple hundred balls. And I didn't say anything. Nobody, didn't say anything. I watched it, and it went on for the whole mini camp, the 3 days. Come back, we start our training camp, and there's Tony. So I asked Tony, I said, Tony, why do you do this? He said, Coach, my rookie year, I forget the number, 5 drops, and that was just unacceptable. I had never had 5 drops in college, had never done it. He said, I was going to make sure that I was not going to have 5 drops in another season. And the reason I go out there and catch it is because that rookie season. Well, so fast forward a couple weeks, I start looking out there, and next thing I know, gosh, there's Roddy White. 2 days later, there's Harry Douglas. Shoot, there's another day, there's Jarius Norwood. So we've got our offensive players out there working early and doing it on their own. That is leadership. That is commitment of a player, and his self-commitment to be better made people around him better.
Great examples. And back to Ray Lewis, what was that feeling like getting that Super Bowl ring on that up in Baltimore?
Oh gosh, anybody that has won a Super Bowl ring will tell you it is so surreal because you work so hard as a team. You put in so many hours, and there's a lot of sweat and blood and good moments, bad moments. It was just it was surreal. I remember like it was yesterday that when we got our rings, It was just the team and the families all together, because the families are a big part of it as well.
Well, to dovetail off that comment, one of the key themes in your book and kept me thinking a lot was the difference between a transactional coach and a transformational coach, right? And I found that interesting because people have transactional relationships and transformational relationships. In coaching, describe some of the behaviors that makes a coach transactional versus transformational.
Well, I think when you're transactional with your actions, your players that you're working with, I think they see that very, very quickly. I'll first say that. It's not about one action or one transaction. It's about growing to be better, and not only be a better football player, but to be a better father, to be a better teammate, to be a better friend. And I think that's when you start to transform guys into what they want to become. And I think you can guide, as a coach, you can guide guys and guide people that you work with in a certain direction, but ultimately it's up to them. And if it's all about a transaction that I'm going to do this for you and then you do this for me, you've got no chance to be successful at all in a team setting. Yeah. It's all about transforming each other and teammates. Once you're in a transform situation where you're transformational with your team, you're going to get just as much as you give, or maybe even more, from the guys that you're working with. And
so does that mean having a relationship with them outside of the football field? Does that mean, 10 years after coaching them, that you still care about them? What is that transformation? Or does it mean that you want to improve them off the field?
Well, I think it's both. I think while you're there with them and they're on your team, it's important that they learn the X's and O's for you to be successful and win on the scoreboard and win in the standings. But I think that when you start to talk about transforming someone, is that you are dealing with them on a different level. That season is just a short time, and the things that you deal with a player should be something that they're going to be able to take the following year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And to me, that's where you really have an effect on a player. And it's so rewarding as a coach to still have relationships with guys, because they'll come back to you and say, Coach, I remember you talking about this situation, and I thought it would never happen, but guess what? It happened just that way. And it may be in business, it may be with their family, and you're always, as a coach, you're always coaching.
Yep.
That's the thing that I think you can't turn it on and turn it off if you're going to be a successful coach. You've got to build relationships on so many different levels. And I always thought the best way to do that is to have interaction off the football field with the players. And here in Atlanta, we tried many, many different ways. We took the players my first year, we took them to get golf lessons. Yeah. And they, guys were going, why are we going out and giving golf lessons? I said, well, guys, this is a sport you're going to be able to play your entire life. I said, also, it's going to be a sport which you're going to be able to meet people after your career and still compete And they were going, yeah, well, I love to compete. But also, as you know, the golf course is such a great place for relationships in business and so many other things. And there was another reason. I knew that it takes 4.5 hours to play a round of golf. That's 4.5 hours. They're not out doing something that might get them in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I know you're an avid golfer, and I definitely want to learn more about your involvement with Intown Golf Club. But before we get there, one of the other fascinating things, and this goes to the relationship piece. In your book, you share how a consistent coach is a coach that wins, and if you're 0-8 or 8-0, you still have to act the exact same. And on paper, it sounds easy to do, right? But we've all won stuff, we've all lost stuff, and to have kind of that level temperament, how does a coach that has a losing record and versus a winning record, like what are some examples of consistency from a coach's perspective?
Well, I think that as a head coach, and especially the further you get up the ladder, when I say the ladder from college football to the NFL or high school football to college football, it's very important that you're consistent. And I think you have to have your messaging where it's first and foremost about the whole year, and then you back it down from there. I think that everybody needs to know that you're organized and that you have a plan. And within that plan, you're not going to vary from it. I think I talked in the book a little bit about, we wanted to make sure that our guys knew what the schedule was. So I gave them the schedule the first day that we could meet all the way through the Super Bowl, and they looked at me like, what is, first time I did it, is what is this guy doing? I said, well, guys, this is the days we're going to work. This is the days we're going to have off. And I said, this is so you guys can plan to be with your family and make sure that you understand what days you're working and what days you're off. And guys really bought into it. They knew on the bye week they could book a flight and they're going to be gone Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I think that's things like that are super important for the players, and you have to be consistent.
And that was the year that we were what 12 yards short. That was the year that the schedule that you had. We
made it all the way almost to that. We had some opportunities to go into the playoffs and everything, but when you're consistent with the people that you work with, they have it's a calming effect when you're consistent. When you're inconsistent, guys aren't going to know what they're going to get on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And I think it's important that you let the guys know this is what it's going to be. This is how we're doing things. And yes, come Monday, if you don't get the outcome that you want, there's got to be some hard discussions and some tough decisions made within an organization. But once that's over, then you have to look forward. Hopefully you'll learn from the things that we talked about on Monday, and then when you come back on Wednesday, we've got a new goal, a new carrot out there to go chase and to go get. And to me, that's being consistent.
So does a coach set the vision for the team for the year versus focusing on the weekly blocking and tackling, right? Or is that more the GM and the owner's role to kind of set the vision? Here's what we want the culture to be, versus the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, blocking and tackling.
Well,
literally.
Yes, literally blocking. Yes, I think every organization's a little bit different. I think that the owner definitely sees it from 3 miles up, and he should. and he's going to see it different than the linebacker coach or the head coach or the general manager. And I think it's very important that the general manager and the head coach work very closely, because they're going to have to make decisions that are tough, and they may not always agree on what's going to happen. And I think when you have synergy there in those two roles, it helps the chance for you to be successful. But I think the head coach, the first thing that you have to do is, and I talked about this in the book, you went in the locker room first, is we needed to make a good first impression. When I first came to Atlanta, it was it was a tough situation. The Michael Vick situation was just getting ready to explode, basically. Bobby Petrino had left, gone to back to college, and I believe went to coach at Arkansas, left with 3 games left. So, we had to work with these guys because they had lost trust in a lot of things when that happened.
Yep.
And so the first thing that we had to work on was trusting one another. And I always said this, to be the person and to be the right kind of leader, you need to say what you do and do what you say. And if you do that, people are going to recognize that very, very early, and they're going to follow you. And then the other thing that I think is so important is you only get one chance for a first impression.
Yep.
And you say, well, Coach, that's not anything about football. It really isn't. But it was really at the core of what we felt like we needed to do with the Atlanta Falcons in year one.
Yep. How does the business of the NFL affect the culture, right? Can you have a good culture and not win?
I think you can have a good culture and not win, but if it happens to go that way beyond a few weeks, then something's wrong, because we're in the business in the National Football League to win and win games. That's what we're that's what we're hired to do. That's how we're ultimately going to be judged. So I'll leave it as simple as that. But culture is huge.
Yeah.
And most times when you're coming into a new situation, it's not because Bill Cowher rode off to the sunset after he'd won his second Super Bowl. Usually you're going into that job because the guy that was there in that position before you was not successful. So early on what you have to do to make sure that you're going to be there long term. And I believe this, that in any job there's a shelf life. And I think in athletics and professional athletics, I think it's getting shorter and shorter for coaches.
Yeah. And we're going to take a quick break here and share that this podcast is brought to you by Atlanta Ventures. If you are looking to start the next $300 million business out of Atlanta, check out the studio at atlantaventures.com. Coach, as a let's talk about kind of the hand-to-hand battle and combat on the day-to-day, right? We've heard about the process, we've heard about setting expectations, but how do you turn around a moment on where the sideline is you're losing control of the sideline, right? And things are going bad on the field. Like what do you do in that moment to turn the tables and to win? Like, can you give us an example of what you did and how to do it?
Well, there's sometimes you have to manufacture things. Other times things can become naturally. And I think the better teams and the ones that I've been on and the ones that have been the most successful and have been the closest is there's not one leader. It's not the owner. It's not the general manager. It's not the head coach. And some people might look at you and say, what are you talking about? Well, you need to have leadership in an organization that is as big as a National Football League team that has 4 position groups on defense, 4 position groups on offense. You need to have those people in your building and in those rooms that can be your touch points to the rest of them. And that's one of the things that I always tried to do was I tried to first identify who are these leaders. It's Tony Gonzalez in the tight end room. On the linebacker room, one year it was Michael Peterson. Michael Peterson was a backup, but he had got a lot of pelts on his wall in terms of what he'd done in his career. And those guys are the guys that you as a head coach have to have a great connection to, because when things aren't going right, they have to take some control, because you're not with the guys all the time. And
it's like delegating leadership.
Exactly. And those guys that take it and run with it, it's teaching the younger guys. It's like, okay, things are going bad. Well, Smitty's going to have, his head pop off, or his eyes are rolling back in his head. You can't do that all the time. Here's a great example. I tell people this story all the time. We were in Baltimore, and we had a great staff. Brian Billick put together a great staff. Marvin Lewis, Rex Ryan, Jack Del Rio, Mike Nolan was on that staff. All went on to be head coaches in the National Football League. And we had a great defense in '99. We had gone through and had 2 consecutive shutouts, and we had 4 for the season, and we were playing the Cleveland Browns. And I mean, the Cleveland Browns were the Cleveland Browns even back then. They were just coming back. Spurgeon Wynn was their quarterback, and we had just shut out 2 teams, and we were going for our 3rd in a row. Well, the opening drive of the game, we're playing in Cleveland, and they go right down the field. I mean, 78 yards, 6 plays, touchdown. And everybody was shocked. And Brian, and Brian will tell you, he was going crazy. And the defense was running off the field, and Brian was yelling and screaming, and Ray Lewis and Rod Woodson said, Brian, we got this. And so Brian just stepped back, did the whole head coach thing. I've done it before. And those guys got over there on the bench and worked it out themselves. And when you have that kind of team, they're going to identify when and where who needs to step in. And I'm not a guy that likes to yell and scream unless it really is going to have an effect. And probably in my 7 years there in Atlanta as the head coach, maybe 2 or 3 times. But let me tell you, Roddy White would voice his opinion, and it would be done at the right time. And if it was done at the wrong time, you need to point that out to help those guys in their leadership journey. And I think that's one of the things that I think leaders need to do is they need to delegate and let guys do their thing, but be there to be a sounding board, or if it wasn't done the way you think it needed to be done, or if it didn't work, say, hey, why do you think that didn't work? Because there's been guys that'll just go on a rant. We need to do this, we need to do that.
And it's going in one ear.
It's going to one ear and out the other.
Contemporary question. Looking back, what and with the fresh set of eyes, what do the Falcons need to do today to win a Super Bowl in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I have to be honest with you, I don't watch a whole lot of football on TV. I still am trained to watch football on what we call
like tapes,
all 22.
Yeah.
The end zone shots, the sideline shots. We don't watch the TV copies. So I'm not privy to really what is going on, even what people are saying about every team. But the NFL is a competitive league, and again, every year is a new year, and the league is set up in such a way that they want parity. That's why we have the draft.
Yep.
And the team that's got the worst record gets the first pick. The team that's got the best record. So they want it to be as a level playing field as we possibly can to keep the interest in it. So when a team doesn't have success, they're not as far off as their fan base believes they are. I really truly believe that, because for the most part, it is it's a level playing field. And when you really look at it, there's usually one or two teams that stand out, and then there's 7 or 8 that could be in, could be out, and then there's others that are 1 week they play well enough to do it. So
I think that's what makes the league so exciting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on any given Sunday.
On any given Sunday, and I know it's a cliche, and the ball has to bounce your way. The injury factor has to bounce your way.
Yep.
And it's, sometimes it's not what you call and what you did, it's when you did it. So that's what makes the game, like you said, so exciting. So I would.
So let me reframe the question. Looking back, is there anything that you would do differently as a coach? And this could be in Baltimore, this could be in Atlanta. Now that you've had a few years to reflect on your career.
Yes, and I'm asked all the time, what would you do different, in Atlanta? And everybody reflects when you don't have success. And granted, I'm very proud of what
You're the most successful Falcons coach we've had.
Yes, well, I'm very proud of what we, when I say we, as an organization, accomplished. In 7 years while we were there. So it's to me it's important. But I have thought about a lot of things after you have failures. Everybody looks at it, and you can look at it from a completely different lens because you're removed from it. And I believe this: when we lost to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, we kind of lost our way as an organization. And this isn't breaking news. I've said this, I've said this before. Myself, Thomas Dimitroff, the general manager, Arthur, Rich McKay, we all are fans. Everybody was talking about we were 12 yards away from the Super Bowl. We were 12 yards away. The game was over, and we had a big lead. We had a 17-point lead, and on the last play, we had the ball on the 12-yard line, and we couldn't throw it in the end zone. And everything the following season, off season, all of our discussions in-house, the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them are, what are we going to do to go to the Super Bowl? Instead of going back and starting over every year, there's a new process that you go through. But we were jumping above a bunch of steps because, to win a Super Bowl, you've got to get into the playoffs. To get into the playoffs, the sure way to do it is to win your division. And we started making decisions as a group on, it was framed about, okay, is this going to get us to the Super Bowl next year? The fans bought into it. The organization bought into it. We all, including me. And I knew better. But I just didn't really see it the way I see it right now. Yeah. And, hindsight is 20/20. And I think it's important that you reset every year when you're a leader of an organization. Every year is a different year. You've got to reset. But you have a process that has been successful. You need to start with that process again, and you'll make subtle changes. We always are, but we jumped way ahead. Everything was, when we started talking about free agents, well, can we win the Super Bowl? Will this guy help us win the Super Bowl? Instead of, we got to win one game. Yeah. We got to have a good offseason. We got to get guys healthy. Hey, we've got to keep, certain guys, try to keep certain guys on our roster. We kind of jumped way ahead and looked at every decision based on
the long term.
Long term or the ultimate goal. Well, that ultimate goal takes a whole lot of hard work, and it starts with a process that you had done for 5 of the previous years and had been very successful, and we kind of changed it.
Sure. Coach, you're obviously passionate about coaching as an industry, and since you've walked away from the field, you're still very active, outside of golf, fishing, writing. You have your own podcast, right? From thelockerroom.com. Just share a little bit more of the why behind that.
Yeah, sure. This is a passion project for me. Some people, have projects and they do it, for different reasons. But this is a passion project for me. I want to give back to coaching. Coaching's been very good to me. It's helped me frame how I raised my daughter. It's helped me be a better husband. It's helped me be a better friend, a better teammate, and I want to give back. And it's a very important profession. So when I say we, myself and a gentleman that I'm very familiar with named Dr. Richard Sander are putting together these podcasts to help young coaches, even old coaches or people in business, to learn, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, whether it's an NFL game, whether it's a college game, whether it's a high school game. And
I mean, I can remember all my coaches growing up, whether it's basketball, baseball, and they're so influential on the trajectory of your career.
No, there's no doubt. I can do the same. I can't tell you who my 5th grade teacher is, but I can tell you who my first midget football coach was. I can tell you who my first basketball coach was. No disrespect to teachers. My mom and I've got 4 brothers and sisters that are teachers, but coaches have a special place in the interaction that they have with young folks. And I believe this, we're losing kids, young children and young kids to move away from sports because of the interaction and the relationships that they're having with their coaches. And when you talk to people, and I've done this informally, if you talk about football, the number one reason children aren't playing football, young kids aren't playing football, is the safety factor. We're trying to make it safer. They're changing the rules. They're trying to get, better equipment, and I think they're doing a good job with that. But the second reason young kids are not playing football is because the bad relationships and the interaction that they have with coaches. And I think it's important for us to coach coaches with the experiences that we've had, and that's what we're doing with From the Locker Room with our podcast. We're having conversations, we're having guests that come in to talk about their trajectory, their careers, and how they view coaching as a whole right now. And it's changed immensely, John, as you know. And you're losing them. If you're losing them when they're 9, 10, 12, you've lost them forever, because they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to be, like we talked earlier, they're going to be doing esports or something.
Well, today you're definitely not putting 15 of them, 15 players in a truck and dropping them off on down in Daytona Beach. So it is different. We met through the CEO of Intown Golf Club, Michael Williamson, and you were one of the earliest supporters for Intown Golf Club. Describe what attracted you to that opportunity so much, and your involvement with it.
Well, let me say this. I'm an avid golfer. I'm not a real good golfer. You've seen my game. But I love the game of golf. I was introduced to it at a very early age, 8 years old, played it till I was 12, and then I started playing basketball, more basketball, football, baseball, and golf kind of took a back seat. And then about age 30, I started to take it up again. Of course, when you're a coach, you can't play and you can't be very good. But I'm very passionate about the game of golf. There's so many things about golf that hit home with me. The competition, the sportsmanship, all those things are very, very important to me. And I am very passionate about golf, and there are ways that I think with Intown Golf that we can create an atmosphere for more people to play golf and enjoy golf. And I think it's a great, great concept. It's been well thought out. And I think Intown Golf here in Atlanta is just going to be super successful because of the way that it's designed. And it's going to make it convenient. It's going to make it quicker. And it's going to get more information into young people's hands, and that's what they're all about. Their data, your group of friends, Jon, are very data driven, right?
Yes, and we like to see the data quickly.
Yes, very quickly, and that's something that Intown Golf is going to do, and I think for guys that are gray hairs like me, we're gonna love it too. Not probably in depth as the younger generation, but it's also going to allow us to free up more time. There's great things about going out and playing a traditional golf course, or one that everybody thinks is the place to go play. There's those bucket lists. All of us golfers have the bucket list, but we can actually go on a rainy day and play.
Have that camaraderie.
And
competition.
And the competition and the sportsmanship. Those are the things that I think are so cool about golf, and we're going to be able to do it in a surrounding, in a setting that is classical golf. And that's, I think, what Michael says it best when he says, we're looking for the avid golfer to be a member of an Intown club.
Yeah. Coach, we always finish up the Atlanta Story podcast with the question, why Atlanta, and what has Atlanta done for you? I mean, when you found out you were coming to Atlanta as the head coach, what was that feeling like? And I think you say the line is they don't hire to retire, and just tell us why Atlanta, and why'd you stay here, and why do you keep coming back, and what's Atlanta done for you?
Okay, well, not a whole lot of people know this, but my father is a native Atlantan. I have 2 aunts and uncles. I have cousins that grew up in DeKalb County and North Fulton County. I've been coming to Atlanta since I was 4 and 5 years old to see my big mama. Big mama and papa. We came up here, so I have an affinity for this, the city of Atlanta. And it was kind of like unbelievable that I had an opportunity to become the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, if you got to pick the city that you wanted it to be, it was the Atlanta Falcons. And, and I owe a lot to Arthur Blank and Thomas Dimitroff for going through the process and choosing me to be the head coach. And, Atlanta is a diverse city. It's a big city, but it's also a small city. And I know some people will look at me like I'm crazy because of the traffic and trying to get around. That's all part of the big city. But there are places.
Yeah, your neighborhood.
You've got so many cool neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta. And my wife and I, we love it. Yep. Of course, we also have a love for other parts of the country, and we're very fortunate to be able to spend time in different places where we don't have to have one home as we move into the sunset of our lives. And we're going to continue to be part of Atlanta. We're going to try to continue to be part of athletics, football, golf. I enjoy fishing. I didn't realize that I would be as busy as I am when I'm, quote, retired.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thanks for continuing to create and produce, and generations will absolutely reap what you've sown. So thank you, and thank you for being part of the Atlanta Story podcast.
Jon, thank you for having me, and I look forward to watching and hearing and listening to some of your other guests, because it sounds like you've had some great guests.
Oh yeah. And we'll have a couple good competitions at Intown Golf Club.
I'm looking forward to it.
Pins.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Coach.
All right, thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Atlanta Ventures. It was co-produced by JC Lucas and Jon Birdsong. If you are looking to start the next $300 million business in Atlanta, check out the studio at atlantaventures.com and the companies we work with who've done it before. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it at your next coffee meeting or dinner greeting, rate it, and write a benevolent, eloquent review.